Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a brother that I have had the privilege of knowing literally for over 45 years. That's how long it's been. His mom and my mom were best friends growing up. We spent a lot of time together. This brother is a husband. He's a father. He's a man of God. And again, he's that brother from another mother, so to speak. Born and raised in Chicago, coming up, we've been through a lot, had a lot of experiences together, and he's taking some time out of his busy schedule to jump on with us this evening to share a little bit about his journey and his story in hopes of inspiring and encouraging others along the way and dealing with challenging and adverse moments in life. So without any further delay, let me introduce you to my dear friend, my brother, Mr. Edmund Toms. Edmund, thank you so much, my brother, for being on the show today.
All right, thank you for having me, man. It's been a long time coming, man. I actually was anticipating this, man. I made sure my name was clear, man.
Absolutely, man. It's been a minute. As a matter of fact, the last time I saw you was right after my mom passed when I came down to Atlanta. So it's been a little bit over 12 years now. So since I last saw you, but of course we managed to keep up with each other over social media and everything. And and again, we got a long history. One of the few people that I can honestly say I've known for as long as I said 45 plus years. So to still be in contact with each other, to still see each other doing our things, raising our families, and just doing life, it's an awesome thing. So I'm grateful to have you on board, and I'm excited to hear about your story that you'd like to share with us today. So before we jump into that, I do want to, of course, give the audience an opportunity to get a little bit of taste about who you are. This is who I am. This is where I'm from. This is what I do. Kind of give them a feel for who is Edmund Toms.
Well, as you say, like I said, I'm from Chicago. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I was born to a loving family. I had my moms and pops. They had four kids. Me and I have three brothers, and we're typically a south side of Chicago family. My mom was a practicing Catholic who took us to church every Sunday, every church event. We went to Catholic schools from grade school to high school. So we really had a foundation of, spirituality, Christian living, Christian upbringing. Now, I can't say that all the time that, you know, growing up, as you know, I probably wasn't the best Christian child, but, I had that base and foundation, which was actually grounded me years to come. So, they were hardworking, blue collar family. We weren't we weren't fancy. We had cube steaks for dinner. That was a big deal in the household. My dad was a very hard worker. My mom was also a hard worker. So, those things were instilled early on in me and my family members that, you get out here and you work hard, and with your hard work you'll be rewarded. So, um, typical upbringing, south side of Chicago. We were in our neighborhoods. We were more family. We didn't have internet. We didn't have all these other distractions. So people dealt with people far more frequently and interacted. So I think that for me, growing up was a strong base of getting to understand people, learn people, know how people are, just the nuances of people. But I see how the benefit of that was growing up back then in those early times. I really do appreciate those times now.
That's awesome, man. And like you said, it just as the little bit that you were just sharing. I'm just playing it out in my head, just imagining that, and then it kind of takes us into what I wanted to speak to next, because as with any journey, you can't really like as you stated, to appreciate the journey, understand the full scope of the journey, unless you go back to the beginnings of it all. And
Right.
so you have dipped into this a little bit, and I want to build up on that a little bit more, about some of your fond memories about growing up, and as particularly if there was any challenges, because as you stated, I mean, it's one of those things. If you know, you know. I mean, we grew up South Side Chicago specifically. I still remember. Obviously, you grew up on 60th and Lafayette.
Yeah.
You know, 60th and Lafayette got a lot of history, a lot of memories. My
Yeah.
grandmother grew up on 60th and Lafayette.
Yeah.
That's how my mom met your mother before you and I existed,
Right.
you know. And so a lot of history on that. But like one of the things that you talked about was the fact that even though that wasn't necessarily considered to be the, you know, the upscale side of town or anything
Right.
like that, it was still very community, very family oriented in spite of all of that, you know.
Absolutely.
So if you would kind of as you think about that some more, just kind of reflect about, you know, what are some of the fond memories that you have thinking about just specifically 60th and Lafayette, like the stuff that was going on and the fun times and even like I said, even some of the challenges that come along with that. If you would just kind of share that with our audience so they can truly get a scope of what that life, that South Side Chicago life was like.
It's played differently on, as on media, social media these days. But actually, my upbringing on South Side of Chicago was a very good, strong upbringing. I I had a sense of community. I did things that I probably shouldn't have done, but whenever I did something, I was admonished, whether it was a neighbor, whether it was, Miss Watson, or whether it was Angelina, whether it's Miss Primus, all down the line, that I was always in a community where it felt that somebody was watching over me. And that's a really a great feeling to know and understand that, despite all the things that's going on, you have a backup. You have somebody who cares enough about you to make sure you don't do the wrong thing, to keep you on track. And those types of memories, when I think about it, and from time to time when I would go back, because our block now has been bought out and turned into a whole different scene, but we would go back, and the sense of community was so strong there that everybody would return to the block at some point in time, whether you moved to Atlanta or moved to Indianapolis or moved to Minnesota. We will always come back, and there were always a staple in that community that tied us together, whether it was my mom, whether it was Miss Primus or Elaine. There were always people there that people came back to see because they were the pillars of the neighborhood. And those memories are growing up, now that I look at them, were some of the fondest memories that could ever anybody could ever really have. I mean, good. We had things, but we didn't have the things that we would love to. I would have loved to have a cool car like an Opel GT.
See,
you
see,
know,
he remembered
but
that.
just things that growing up, that you long for as a kid, but it's material things. You really don't necessarily like really cling to those once you get older. You understand that the world is greater than the material things. The back then, the Air Jordans or the starter jacket or whatever that was in style or whatever that was the hot thing back then. Jabos or something like that. I just enjoy the memory of now not having those things, which motivated me to do better, be better, strive for things that greater than just material things, something greater than just being the kid that has something cool on the block. So those
And it's
were
interesting that you said, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
no,
It's
no, go
interesting
ahead.
that you say that is because it was like we didn't have, but we didn't go without either. It was
Without a
like
doubt.
what we didn't have per se, as we and we say that loosely. It was I might have not had, like you said, the latest Jordans and the latest, you know, designer this or designer that, but and I'm sure you remember the
Mhm.
days where you know we're rolling up to your house at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, and we're
Right.
heading out to the malls.
Yep.
Not because we're getting ready to ball out of control. We're
Right.
on a, you know, our parents were on a mission to do the bargain shopping to make sure that we
Yep.
had, whether it was school clothes, whether it was recreational clothes, whatever. We
Hmm.
shopping all day, hitting all these malls. It was a
Yeah.
big community family type deal that we were doing. And then at the end of the day, we'd managed to land at a White Castle or something like that to get the meal
Wow,
in
man.
because we'd have rolled out all day
Right.
long. And you know, our parents were just good at that. They could take the $50 or the $100 in their pocket
Right.
and walk away with $1,000 worth of clothes. But
Yeah.
like I said, we didn't go without clothes. We didn't starve to death. You know,
Dude.
our kids today has opportunity to do so many different things, and we're thankful for being in a position that allowed them to do that. But then, like I said, we didn't have when it came to sports, we didn't get the chance to play club ball and AAU and all that kind of stuff. I still
Right.
remember you had the basketball court across the street from your house, with the
Yep.
makeshift rim and with no net, and the fellas would be out there playing until it was pitch black outside, so you couldn't even see the ball anymore.
Right,
It was just
exactly.
we managed to create our own fun, our own excitement, our own enjoyment, and as you said, it was a community thing, and so being in that type of network, even though you were in, again, a neighborhood where there were elements of other stuff that you didn't want to get caught up in,
Right.
you were in essence, you were shielded from that because of
Correct.
the family structure, not only in the house, but in the community of the neighborhood. Somebody was always checking
Right.
and watching. So you had this extended family of parents, of moms and dads, mainly moms,
Right.
who was gonna make sure
Right.
you,
Exactly.
you wasn't
Yeah.
cutting up and doing whatever, or the block parties that would go down.
Yeah.
We had the block parties and the cookouts and all the games in the streets and all that, and
Right.
popping the fire hydrant, open,
Right.
all kind of
Exactly.
crazy stuff like that. Things that our kids don't really even get to experience or know about how much fun the simple things were, just so
Right.
much fun,
So much fun.
back
And
then.
and a lot of the things that, I mean, our community brought forth so much because, like you say, we didn't have social media to reach out to. For example, your mom was the first person I knew that ever opened up a center. When she opened up, I think it was at 100 and what was that, 126 or
On the 42nd out in the
140.
river, they're talking about right tracks.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just that entrepreneurial, vigor and, that outgoing, those are the things that I remember and I can connect to, like, and say, hey, that's what I want to do. Or that's what I want. I didn't want to be, Kim, follow some sports star. I had somebody in my community where I could see what they were doing when they got all those computers in the office and all the training courses, man. I'm telling you, though, those are my fondest memories of those situations where, it's just amazing to be able to see the people who create. We see the big names, but we had the opportunity to see our parents, our relatives, our neighbors do amazing things. So those are the things that were so positive for me to see, that your mom always had the entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, from head to toe. So those are the those are the things that I remember and I see and I can turn to and say, you know what? I saw that. That's my motivation. I don't need somebody else's motivation from wherever. I had it right in front of me, and I'm blessed for that.
Absolutely, man, and you're so right. I mean, our parents each, our moms particularly, they brought so much to the table and things that you could, grab hold to and learn from and apply. Like we didn't understand it all, in our younger years, but I mean, from our very beginnings in Cub Scouts, and our moms, being the den mothers, and we going out on camping trips and all the other scout troops. They struggling to put together meals and everything, and our moms out there, they fixing us bacon, sausage, eggs, pancakes, and grits in the woods,
Right.
pulling it off. Like, where does this? These are supposed to be city women, and they out
Right.
here doing. They out here making a way for us out there. And then of course we get a little older and we get into the Knights of St. Peter Claver, and involved in that, and everything from experiencing being altar boys, and all of the stuff that we just, all of those things, they did what they could to
Hmm.
keep us, active and involved in things, but also, of course, not leaving out the Christian foundational base,
Right.
making sure, like you said, you know, unlike children these days, kids these days, we didn't have options about whether or not we was going to church on Sunday.
Right.
That was a regular thing, and we actually looked forward to it.
Right.
We went to church, and we went to church looking like we was at somebody's church. We were in our church suits
Yes.
with our church shoes, and we knew, because I joke about that even with my daughter. Sometimes I was like,
Hmm.
back in the day, you only had three types of clothes. You had school clothes, play clothes, and church clothes.
Yep.
And and then after church, remember we go across the street to the little corner store and get the greasy
Yep.
fries in the bag for like $1.
Go to Mildred's.
And a hot dog, that was one of the best eating
Right.
that you
I
could
mean,
do. So just
bag.
stuff like that, and the sacrifices our parents made trying to send us to Catholic schools, that wasn't cheap, doing that, and just being supportive and just being there in our lives, and just being involved and wanting to position us the best way possible to be the best versions of ourselves as we matured and grew up and ultimately become adults and leading our own lives. And as you said, man, you can't help but to pay homage to that. And both of our moms are no longer here with us, but they definitely imparted in us some very valuable things. I mean, even as I follow you, man, across social media, across the lines, and just seeing the things that you're doing and seeing your own son, man, and what a fine young man he's turned into. And I haven't
Right.
had a chance, the pleasure of meeting him personally, but it's just like I'm seeing that. I'm like, man, my brother is doing his thing as a dad and as a husband, and he's just living his life. And I know his mom and your mom was able to live to see a lot of that. And I
Right.
know she had to be proud. I know she did.
She
You
she
know,
was. She
she
was.
was. I mean, I can even still remember the last time I spoke with her, probably about a year before she
Hmm.
passed. She called me out of the blue one day, just happened to find my number and called
Right.
me, and was talking about the grandson and talking about you and all that stuff, man. So you could tell just in the hearing in her voice that she was
Right.
proud. Like she felt like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do as a mom. If
Right.
I have to, if I close my eyes, I can do so, knowing that he and my other sons are gonna be all right.
Right.
And my mom was the same way. She just wanted to know that when it was all said and done, that she had done her part and I was gonna be okay.
Right.
And so like you said, we could go on and on about these times and these memories, man.
Right.
It's just exciting to think about.
But just to piggyback on what you said, I mean that as a parent, I mean since we're now parents, that's our goal now, just to make sure we prepare our children, our next generation, to be self-sustainable, be able to go in this community and not just be great for themselves, but be great for the community. Because at the end of the day, no one man is an island. You have to live amongst people. You have to be involved in things that matter. Because you know, as a pastor once said, I heard during this meet, he said, God pours into you. He doesn't pour into you to keep it in the vase. He wants you to pour the vase and put it in another vase and another. Just
Mhm.
keep continuously pouring into the vase until it gets out to everybody. And once we get a greater connection and understanding of what pouring into each other is, I think we would probably have a greater community, greater world, a greater sense of who we are as humanity.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you, man. Wow, wow. That was just even we just getting the show started, man. We already, man, just glowing, man. Just thinking about just all the stuff playing in my mind, just the memories, man. Too many to count.
Right.
But I'm so thankful that we both have those, and it's just like I said, and I know we're making our moms proud and doing what we're
Oh,
doing.
absolutely.
So
I
that's
know they
that's that
smiling
mean that
right now.
means the world, right? Absolutely. Just
They
just
are
the
smiling.
fact that we're even having this conversation right now
Right.
is like that would just have them, just jumping up for joy. So absolutely. So when you talk about going through our journeys in life, we of course we go through our childhood, we get into adulthood, and as we move through the years, more and more challenges and moments come our way, and we do our thing in handling them. Again, just like we talked about, our parents did a good job at preparing us to handle those challenging and adverse moments in life. But
Right.
every now and then, the reality is every now and then you do come across a situation that's a little bit heavier than the normal stuff. I might be
Right.
good at navigating this, that, or the other, but every now and then I get hit with something that's a bit much. It's a bit overwhelming, and maybe even get to the point to where I'm questioning, how am I going to get through this?
Right.
This is even too much for me. I'm not sure. Even with all my faith in God and all of that, I'm still struggling. I don't know how I'm gonna get through that. So with that said, I would, if you would, like
Hmm.
you to share a time you found yourself in a situation like that where you didn't know how you were going to get through that situation that was before you. It was a bit much. It was a bit heavy, but we know you're here today, so I know you made it through whatever that story is that you're going to share. But
Hmm.
if you would kind of walk us through what that moment was like for you, one of those stories that you'd like to share, and what was that ultimate breaking point where you were able to sort of see that light at the end of the tunnel and being able to come up out of that situation.
Well, I do have one I can draw from. I mean, I have many, but actually, the one that was greatest for me actually happened maybe about 6 months ago, 8 months ago in June. Um, Long story short, I went to the doctor, because I was having some back pains. Because the last I remember, I had picked up the dogs from the groomer, and I was putting the dogs in the car. And, nothing big, nothing going on that much. So I drove home, got home, and let the dogs out. And minutes after that, I just started feeling this real bad backache. And I was like, wow. I was like, maybe I picked up the dog, probably picked him up wrong. So just like typical guys, I was like, it'll be all right. Let me take some ibuprofen, and took a couple of those, and probably toughed it out for a week or two. And it went away, and I was like, okay, cool. So give it another month or two, just out of nowhere, walking down the street, I was just stricken with this back pain again. And I was like, wow. I mean, I didn't pick up anything. So this one particular instance, it got severe enough where I was like, okay, I can't tough this through. So let me go to the doctor and if I pull something. So I go to the doctor, I say, having this back pain and this, that, and the other. And so the doctor, looked me over, took some blood samples and what have you. And so my doctor came back and she said, hey, I'm going to need you to call, your urologist. You have a urologist? I was like, no, I don't have a urologist. She was like, well, here, I'm going to give you a number and you're going to call them and you're going to set up an appointment. And I was like, okay, well, she was like, well, no, you need to call them now and set up the appointment. And I was like, okay. I was like, urologist? I mean, what's going on here? So long story short, we went through the process and found out I had stage 3 prostate cancer.
Oh,
And
wow.
that caught me off guard. I mean, I had really, outside of even the back pains were no, as the doctor was telling me, she said that had no association with your issue with the prostate. She said that just something that came up. And so I got a little worried. I was like, wow. I was like, I had no symptoms. And I'm thinking, what if I never had the back pain, things of that nature? I wasn't unfortunately going to the doctor yearly for checkups and things like that. So, we get into it. I, get talking with my doctor, and he said, hey, he said, you're knocking on the day, just mean on the door, stage 4. He said, we got to get this done and done fairly quickly. And I was like, it was coming so fast. I was like, is this really happening to me right now?
Mhm.
I was like, are you, and no one in these situations ever tell you, hey, you might die. They just give you these percentages. The survival rate, and they give you all these numbers. And I'm like, how about this, man? I was like, I'm a little, on edge now. I'm getting a little shaky here. I'm getting uncomfortable because now, when you telling me I'm knocking on stage 4, I got Google. I know what that means,
Right.
you know. So, I began to, become a little bit more, you know, I would say, for lack of a better word, became, I started to digress a little bit. I started to be like, man, is this really happening to me? I mean, what have I done? Did I do somebody wrong? Did I not live the way I was supposed to? Why me? I mean, I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything that quote unquote would harm my body. And I understand, cancer could be hereditary, things of that nature, but it just put me down in a really sunken place for a little while. I was just like, why me, God? Why me? What I do? So, with strong family support, my wife was great during the process and situation. She's a very Christian and very spiritual person, and she was like, hey, you know, don't ever like look at God as though he was to blame or anything like that. He said you look for him for the answer, the cure, and keep this moving. It's like this is just a hiccup in the road. Said, we have so many stories in the Bible that, God has, come through at the end when you look like you were just down for the count. So with that being said, I started to read a little bit more, be more spiritual and understanding. And, after the surgery, it was an intense surgery. I mean, I've never had surgery before in my life. So, the prep and the recovery and, the the whole experience, opened my eyes to, you know, life is a life is a gift. I mean, this is not something that you're entitled to. It's a gift. It's given to you, and you need to treat the gifts that's given to you with far more. respect, far more gratefulness and gratitude. Because at the end of the day, you know, we all got a number. We just want our number to be the one all the way toward the end as opposed to
Mhm,
closer to
right.
the middle. So, but with that cancer diagnosis and recovery and stuff like that, that one took the wind out of me. But I still stayed focused and grounded that at the end of the day, God takes care of everything and everybody. All you have to do is ask. Just,
Wow.
so yeah, that was a tough one for me, man. It really was. So
I can only imagine. I appreciate, of course, your transparency and sharing that. Obviously, I had no idea. And and it's interesting that you said that you shared this story. I'm thinking about the. I don't know if you paid attention to the title of our show, "Recognition of Reality," and it was almost like I try to. I've gotten to a point in my life, and I don't know about you. I would say you probably have too,
mhm.
to where when you go through these storms of life, yes, you're going to have that initial reaction to it, but I also try to try to assess. Okay, God, what are we doing here? What is the point
Right,
of all of this? And as you were telling your story, I started to reflect back to what you and I just got through talking about how we were raised and the simplicity of life. And our parents did such a great job of preparing us to be successful adults, and we've done that.
right,
But sometimes in the midst of our successes and our accomplishments, sometimes there's a, whether we intend to or not intend to, sometimes there's a distancing that
right,
happens between us and God. And so to make sure that we don't get too far away from him,
right,
especially when we know he loves us unconditionally, we know that we belong to him. He has to allow something to come into our lives that sort of rattles us, that shakes us up. And in your scenario,
right,
it starts with a back pain, and I'm thinking, initially you tried to fix it,
right.
but then it comes back, and it comes back with a vengeance, to the point to where I would imagine you were struggling to just even walk, or struggling to just
Yeah,
even sleep at night. So it was almost like God had to put you on your back
right,
to get your attention. But it was
right.
the dual purpose. One, to get your attention, to bring you, to remind you of his presence, but then also, as your doctor said, the back pain was totally unrelated to your diagnosis. So
Correct.
as you shared, I hadn't been going getting my checkups like I normally supposed to and all that. What happens if I don't get the back pain? This unrelated
Yeah,
back pain, you potentially transition into a stage 4 prostate cancer situation, and then find yourself,
right,
to a point of no return. So, you know, even in the midst of that storm, God is good, because he blessed you through a pain
right,
to get you to the doctor to get the diagnosis. But even after you received the diagnosis, it was still something that you couldn't take an Advil to
right.
fix. You
Absolutely
had to
not.
totally surrender, if you will, to
Right.
God, and say, okay, I don't know what to do. I can't fix this. I can't write a check for this. I can't call
Mhm.
nobody up for this.
Nope.
You the only one that's gonna get me through this. And so thus you have the diagnosis, you have the surgery,
Right,
and you're on that road to recovery. Thank God.
right,
And because if that wasn't the intended plan, you wouldn't be here right now talking to me about it.
right,
So clearly God still has plans for you. He still has work for you to do, but he needed to get your attention. And so this was your scenario where he used to get your attention. And what did it do? It caused you to, maybe I need to be in his word a little bit more. Maybe I
right,
need to talk to him a little bit more, instead of
right,
treating him like a long distance relationship. I mean, we need to reestablish our bond, our connection. I need to get back to the basics of what my mom grew me up in,
right.
which was leaning into God and relying on him. I kind of lost sight of that a little bit. So,
Right, and you're so 100% right. I mean, I just a little quick of a story that happened some years ago. That the faith has always been there. We had a scenario one time where me and my wife, we had just purchased a home, and our son was about maybe 4 or 5, but we really wanted him to go to this great little Christian school. I mean, that was it was a great school. I mean, people raved about it, things of that nature, and we got on the list, and we happened to get picked for him to be able to go to the school. But under the circumstances, at the time my wife wasn't working. We had just bought a house. all the associated things that come along with buying a house. And, this school had tuition money. And at that particular time, it didn't have any tuition money. So we were just like, man, we really want to go, my son to go to the school. What are we going to do? I'm pulling what little hair I had out of my head to try to figure something out. We sat in the parking lot. My wife just said, you know what? Let's stop this. Let's just pray. We prayed in the parking lot. We drove home and was like, all right, it's done. It's in God's hand. If this is His will, this is how it'll go. And I tell you, we get home normal Friday night, you know, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, normal Saturday. Just happened to there's a pile of mail that was off to the side that we're really bad about opening mail. We just kind of toss it off to the side. Whoever gets it, we just toss it to the side. So we were just, we need to clean this stack of mail out. So we began to clean it out. My wife started cleaning up, open up. So I was like, jump, toss out. And there was a letter that we stumbled across that was from our mortgage company. My wife was like, hey, man, you paid the mortgage, right? I was like, yeah, I paid the mortgage. She's like, well, I don't know why they sending us a letter. I was like, well, yeah, I don't think you need to open that letter up. So we opened it up and she looked through it and she had this look on her face. And I was like, uh-oh. And she said, you're not even going to believe this. I was like, what? She handed me the letter. And Joe, the letter was from the mortgage company saying, hey, there was been an oversight. We, you know, we charged you more than, you were supposed to be charged. Here's a check. The check was for the exact amount that we needed to put our son in that school.
Mm,
And we were
wow.
like, whoa. you know, we were like, whoa. I was like, that trembling whoa, like, this is the exact amount. So we were just like, you know what? We prayed on it. And like you say, when you lift it up to God, God will handle it.
Hmm.
He'll handle it. We started him off. We took the check that Monday, started him with school. Now we still have some tuition to pay in the next 2 weeks. I'm still thinking, man, how am I gonna pay this? We'll figure it out. That Friday, my wife gets a call from a job she had applied for months ago. She figured she wasn't in the running for it. At this point, she ever heard back. Well, they called her and they offered her the job, and they offered her the job with 20,000 more than what she had anticipated on even making. And just when she would start that job, her first paycheck would come the first day that we needed to pay that other
Wow.
tuition money, man. So
Mm, mm, mm.
there is no way in God's name that I do not believe that God listens, God responds, and like you say, maybe I had sometimes you get away from talking to God because you think everything out, you got everything under control. I can do this. I'm stable. I'm this. But it's not even about that. It's about keeping that connection. God just wants the connection.
Mhm.
That's what He wants from him. He wants the connection. Talk to Him. Reach out to Him. He knows that everything is not going to be a bed of roses, but He just wants to talk about it. You know, keep in His ear. He'll stay in your ear. I have so many quote unquote testimonies where I can honestly say that God stepped in. So it with the cancer thing, like you say, I had gotten away from doing the talking, and like you said, that was him. Like, okay, I need to continue this conversation, this relationship. So if I need to get you back, this is what I'm going to do. I'm not going to take you over the edge, but I'm going to need to tap you on the shoulder and bring you back. So, well,
Mhm.
I'm back.
Right, right. Thank
Yeah,
God, man. And I mean, and like I said, when I say wow, I say it, in both excitement, but not necessarily in shock,
right,
because that's just how God is. I mean, just what you just shared right now in the two stories that you mentioned, that's the whole essence of what blessings in the streets was about. That's the whole spirit of that,
right,
and and that's just how God moves. I mean, I know you can attest to this, man. If I tried to stay up all night and think about one time where God didn't come through,
right,
I wouldn't be able to come up with one,
right,
and it doesn't always make sense, but it's not supposed to make sense because it's God doing it. The,
Exactly.
the math is not supposed to be the math that it is. How do
R-
you get a check for the exact amount that you needed?
Right.
In a random stack of mail that you just didn't happen to open until that appointed time. Because
Right.
maybe if you would have opened it 2 weeks sooner or a month sooner, you might have spent that money on something else that
Something
didn't have anything to do with what you needed it for. So
right.
it was all by design. It was all a purpose, man. And I don't believe that these things happen by accident. It's divine
Absolutely not.
intervention on God's behalf, and like you said, he has to remind us every now and then when we get to drifting. He has to keep us on point and letting them know, stay in relationship with me, stay in contact, keep the conversation flowing with me. Yeah, I
Right.
know everything that you know. I know everything that you're about to say. I like to use the example of what we tend to run into as men, with, a wife saying, why don't you tell me that you love me?
Right.
And we might say, well, I love you because I do
Right.
this and I do that. I do that. Well, I know you love me, but I just like to hear it. Yeah, I'd like to
Exactly.
hear you say it.
Great.
Well,
Great
God is the
example.
same way.
Right.
I know everything that you're thinking, doing, all of that. I know it before you know it. I just
Right.
want to hear you, but it's something special when you on your own
Right.
speak it to me. When you come to me, then now you make me want to spoil you that much more. That you make me want to bless you that much more because
Exactly.
we got a relationship. We connecting. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. Beautiful, and I'm glad, man, to hear that you of course you had a successful surgery, and then
Yeah.
again I'll continue to keep you in prayer for recovery from that, and no coming back, no
Yeah.
reappearing, no that
Now
stuff,
I'm gonna shut
man,
it
because
down.
you're shutting it down. Right, man. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So when you do find yourself, I'm curious to know when you do find yourself facing challenging moments. I mean, obviously the diagnosis is a big one, but
Mhm.
all of our storms aren't going to always be major, monumental moments. Sometimes it's just day to day, normal life being life
Right.
type stuff that we deal with. What do you like to do? What works for you when you find yourself faced with challenges and adversity that you like to sort of to work through or process through? How do you kind of keep your head straight, while you're going through that? What is your routine or your process that's been proven effective for you?
My process typically is, kind of a two-stage approach. Um, the first process I go through is, in all honesty, I'm like, is this worth the energy that I would have to put forth to this? If it's a bad energy, why do I want to expend bad energy? So what I typically do in tough situations, I look at the situation in its totality and from beginning to end to say, hey, you know what? This is not necessarily worth the the exertion to fight or exertion to put a lot of effort into something that I know and willingly and genuinely know that there's an easy solution to, because every problem has a pretty much an easy solution. It's just being able to communicate and get on the same level with the person that problem is coming from or coming with. I mean, communication is always key. So what I like to do is truly communicate with a person. Now, it's not easy to communicate because sometimes people have different forms of communication. Some people are more verbal, some people are more physical and body language and, things of that nature. So, what I try to do is find the common ground in which the other side can communicate with. If they are a communicator verbally, I try to verbally communicate. If they're more of a, they're a physical communicator, what I try to do with that is, I try to maintain a very calm and, posture, a very, inviting, stance. So people will feel that there's no animosity or there's no, you know, ill will. And when people don't feel that you're attacking them or people don't feel that you're coming after them, they tend to slow it down or pull it back some. And that's when they're able to like have a greater sense of communication in the way that they communicate because they don't feel that they're threatened. They don't feel that you're coming after them. So I typically, you know, read the room when I'm dealing with a problem, or with a person or whatever the situation may be, and I take it from step one, step two, step three to the point where I've calmed everything down and I can communicate with that person, or I can take that situation and I can break it down to its kind of like you're break it down to the final at the end or to the final road. So the road is easier to resolve. The road is easier to see, and it's just all about simplicity. I mean, I think we do too much when it becomes to trying to solve problems because our problems will always come. And I think there's typically simple solutions to every problem. I mean, I think we make, as people, we make things greater than they are when they really don't have to. So I try to not make them greater. I just try to make them smaller.
Love that. And to me, the key word that you said in your explanation here was calm.
Right.
Don't give that energy to a challenge, a storm, because the reality is the storms are going to be there. I mean, I think
Right.
the first thing that we have to understand is that we're going to go through storms.
Right.
It's not a matter of do I feel like it, do I want. Nobody's excused from that. Nobody's immune from that, whether it be by race, gender, financial status, degrees, whatever. We're
Mhm.
going to all go through something. So once you recognize that you're going to go through stuff, you're not in shock when it happens. You're going to still have your initial human reaction to it,
Right.
but I'm gonna be calm. I'm gonna be, I'm gonna chill so that I can then, as you stated, let me walk this thing through. Let me process it. Let me make some sense of it. Let me break this down so that way I'm not giving any unnecessary or exerting any unnecessary energy towards this. So I can think clearly and calmly and with the right mindset. Because if I'm all over the place, if I'm super emotional about it,
Right.
then that's not one. I'm gonna wear myself out,
Right.
and or wear the other person out if it happens to be a person to person situation, and it's going to take me longer to get to an actual resolution because I'm just caught up in,
Yeah.
why is this going on? Why is it? Just relax, take a deep breath.
Right.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
walk this thing through. And again, it's not even about you per se coming up with the answer all the time. I mean, sometimes God will give you that answer right away on what you need to do, and other
Right.
times the answer is not for you to answer. It's for you to
Right.
just release that to him and let him handle that. And again, you sit back and be calm and be patient and just let it work its way out. So,
Right. Yeah.
so I love that approach that you spoke to here. So Edmund, if you had a chance, man, to you think back on your life, I mean, you and I are literally less than a year apart in age from one another. We got some
Right.
years on ourselves right now. If you had a chance, as you reflect back over life, man, if you had a chance to talk to the younger version of yourself,
Hmm.
and you think back to how you used to handle challenges and adverse moments and the things that you've gone through, and you factor all of those things into play, what would you say to that younger version of yourself, or maybe somebody who is currently right now what you used to be,
Hmm.
back then, 20, 30, 40 years
Right.
ago? What would you say to the younger version of yourself that you believe would be of encouragement to get that younger version of you to think in a different kind of way, or process things in a different kind of way that would be actually productive and beneficial for their
Mhm.
that overall growth and development and handling the challenges of life?
Wow. I think, man, there's so many things, but I think my one primary thing that if I could could go back and talk to me is remove fear. Fear is very, very damning, to your growth. And I'm not just talking like, your fear of the boogeyman, or I'm talking about the fear of, what, I I have this passion in my heart. I want to do this, but man, I know those lights got to stay. I know, you know, those bills got to be paid, and that fear keeps you from stepping out on faith.
Mm.
And we hear that all the time: step out on faith. And the scary thing is that that you step out on faith, God's hand will be there, but you are still connected to the world, the flesh, the bodily, those things that you like, man, I don't want to lose the position that I've already gained. So you keep yourself in a box in a sense, and not branch out and not, take over what might be promised for you. God probably was like, you know what? Stop with this fear stuff. You step out, that's yours, this is all what I've ordained for you. You just need to step out. But I've probably missed out on a lot of opportunities because of fear, and like you say, fear is it's powerful. I mean, it's not easy, to get over. Some people conquer it like that. Some people have no fear, and a little bit I envy those people because I want to have no fear. I want to be, that kid growing up that had no fear. But I've always been been that person like, well, maybe not that. When others
Hmm.
are gun ho and I've seen people who step out on faith and God has blessed them, man, tenfold. And those are one of the things that if I told my younger self or any younger person, please do not let fear come into play because God will step in. If this is a passion of yours, if this is something that is for you, you step out, I'm telling you, He will deliver. He will. And it took me many, many years to realize that, you know, my personally, my God is undefeated, you know,
Hmm.
and until I was ready to, keep this fear, and kick it to the curb. And he's like, okay, now I can take care of you like this. You got to get that fear. Then I start to see the blessings come in. And that is the greatest thing that I would tell a younger person. Eliminate fear out of your existence. Because with fear, it will hold you back. And I'm a testament, it will hold you back. It really will.
That is definitely a very powerful message. And I'm with you on that, man. Things that I've allowed fear to restrain me, to hold me back, and some things, some of you have regrets, like, man, if I would have just not been afraid. I mean, just
Right.
real basic stuff. I mean, I could literally, there are even times when I reflect back on just something as simple as trying out for little league baseball. I loved baseball as a kid,
Right.
but I
Yeah.
was afraid. I studied the game, looked at it
Right.
like religiously, knew it
Hmm.
backwards and forwards, but was too afraid to fail and not take a chance of getting on a team to learn a sport. I mean, and that's just something minor, but there's other
Right.
things. As you get older,
Right.
the stakes get higher, the
Right.
opportunities get bigger, and we let that fear get in the way, and we don't take hold. Now, the good news is that even if we've allowed fear to hold us back for some things, once we break free from that, God has a way to not only deliver in the now, but He
Right.
can catch you up for the stuff that maybe you should have already been experiencing right now. He can fast forward all that, like as if you haven't lost any time. So for
Right.
anybody that's checking this episode out, do know that just because you didn't do it earlier
Right.
doesn't mean that it's too late.
Yeah.
If God wants you to have it, if it's purpose for you to do, if it's purpose for you to have,
Right.
you'll have it. You just got to get, like you said, you just got to get past that fear part.
You got to get it past it, man.
And you something that I speak to all the time. He's undefeated.
Right.
He's undefeated. So if he put that vision on your heart, if he put it in your sight, he's not putting that there without already having the victory set. I mean,
Right.
it's like the game is fixed.
Right.
You're going to win this. All
Right.
you need to do is step out in obedience and in faith and just move.
And just move.
Yeah, you come across some barriers along the way. Sure, you might. But
Right.
guess what? He's not going to let you go through that by yourself. So again, you're good.
Right.
Do you know all the particulars and the details of it all? Nope, you don't. And that's intentional because if he told you everything blow by blow, that might give you a reason not to do it. He's just saying, trust me, go forth with this, what I put on you,
Right.
and I'm with you, and I promise you, when I've done that, and I'm sure when you've done that,
Hmm.
you're just like, you get to that end, and not only do you realize the blessing in it all, but then you sit back and you almost like you feel silly, like I was tripping about all of this, and he
Right.
had me all along, and I was worried about stuff. The stuff that I was worried about wasn't even applicable to the
Right.
situation. I was manufacturing problems
Yep.
and all the what ifs and what about this and what about that. So I got stuck in my comfort zone,
Right.
and it's you almost feel silly when you think about it. So I've had too many moments like that, and I'm still learning. I'm still getting better. I mean, I would have never. You asked me a year ago, would I be doing a podcast?
Right.
No. I mean, not that, and it has nothing to do with me being afraid to talk to people or anything like that. That
Right.
was a fear that I used to have, and I've gotten past that. But just you know, God put it on your heart. You just do. I got a mic. I had a laptop,
Right.
and I got some headphones. And I said, okay, I'm gonna write a list of some people, and I'm gonna go from there and see what happened. You
Right.
know, same thing with books. Same thing with other things in life. You just
Yeah.
you got to be willing to, like you said, remove that fear out the way, man.
Right. I
Um,
mean, I mean, even now, like you say, I'm, you know, I, at one time or another, like I say, that fear would like paralyze me, but now I don't let that fear bother me anymore. It's like I know who got my back,
Hmm.
who got me. So
Right, right. Absolutely, man. So, man, this has been a pleasure, man, having you on, man, talking to you, chopping it up, catching up, hearing your story. Even in the 45 plus years that we've known each other, I've learned more about you. And then that's given me even another layer on top of the respect that I already have for you as my friend and as my brother. But before I let you go, I do want to, in this segment of the show, it's kind of customary that we do here on the podcast is I want to have an opportunity to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you, man, and just if you got anything that you'd like to share, any good news, any good happenings that are going on, something that's coming around the corner, whether it's you, your family, personal or business, please do share that, man. Because again, we want to acknowledge you. We want to celebrate that.
well, I mean, the I guess some of the one of the bigger things that's coming up, man. I after like you say, after my surgery and my recovery, I started to kind of look at the things a little bit different, where I want to be in my life at this point in time now. And I'm getting to that age, and we're at that age where you become more reflective about what you want to do toward the other half of your life. And I've come up and made a few decisions. One of my bigger decisions was, I've worked at this law firm in management for 30 years, coming up in May. And I've decided that, once I hit that 30th year, I'm going to retire from them and, start my own. I'm going to do something on my own. I've pledged myself basically to an employer for 30 years. I never really took kind of pledge for myself, pour into me. I've always been
Hmm.
pouring into somebody else's cup. I'm going to pour into my cup. And when my cup gets full, I'm going to pour it over to someone else. So that is probably one of the things that once I eliminate the fear, I probably would have, without the fear elimination, I probably would have stayed there until the day I keyed over. But so now, it's time, to let fear set aside and do me. I'm probably going to more than likely, take some time off, just, do some reflecting, probably help my wife with, she's a realtor. She has her own realtor business. She's a marketing consultant. She has three or four businesses that I can be beneficial of, just being, having contacts and relationships I've built in the legal industry, and just multiple industries across. So I'm really kind of looking forward to helping her build out her businesses and assist her, because she's really a an entrepreneurial and an entrepreneur, and I do want to support that wholeheartedly and push her forward, because reality is, when you know who you are and what your station and what you're good at and what you're not good at, you focus on. I've never been the star of the team. I've always been. I've likened myself to the Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen comparison. You had Michael Jordan. Scottie wasn't trying to be Mike. He just wanted to support Mike, and they all win. And that's what the Bulls did. He played his role, and they win. And he had the same fruits of joy and winning that Michael did, playing his position. And I'm good with my position of support. I've always built myself on support, so that's what I'm going to kind of lean to, and just see how that goes and see how everything turns out. And I'm pretty sure God being, it will, it
That's
really will.
yes, yes. That is awesome, man. I mean, just it's just crazy. I mean, just the full circle of life. Here you are, man, months away talking about retirement, and but I love the fact that you're, speaking to, I'm going to pour into myself. I'm, not that you don't, not that you have regrets into giving in of yourself and doing the works that you've been doing for the past coming up on 30 years. But like you said, there comes a time when you have to pour into you, to truly walk in your purpose, use all those experiences that you've had and just say, okay, God, let me take this to the next level and step out even more on faith and do the works that you've already imparted in me from day one for me to do. All of these experiences, all the challenges and everything else that's come along with it is preparing you for this moment in time. So, and I love that you said the second half of my life, because I mean, I know how old you are. And so the
Right,
fact is you're not checking yourself out like I'm only got a couple of years left, and
right,
you're anticipating having longevity of life which
Right.
means that you're anticipating having a lot of opportunity to do works
Yep.
and to pour into others and into that community concept we talked about
Yep.
earlier, and just blessing and being a blessing in so many facets and forms. So I'm happy for you, man. I congratulate you, salute you on that, and
Thank you.
we just claiming that victory right now, man. That's going to all work out like it's supposed to, and the building up and the support with your wife's businesses and such, man. And you all gonna be doing your thing, man, as you always have been, and
Right.
it's just gonna be leveling it up even more, and you're gonna see some of that even begin to manifest in your own son, and as he begins to do his journey, man, like we talked
Right.
about earlier, leaving that mark. One day he'll be reflecting back in the 10, 20 years from now, saying my dad and my mom did these
Right.
things, and that inspired me, that encouraged me, that motivated me. So you just passing it along, man. You're just doing what we were set up to do. So I
Right.
love that,
Exactly.
man, and I'm excited for you. That's the best I could say with that, man. I'm just excited for you, and just happy to hear, man. That's definitely something to celebrate. So with that said, it's been a privilege having you on board today with me on the show. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed our show, the content, the stories that have been shared, please subscribe, please share, please like, please comment. Because here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is what it's all about. We're about encouraging, uplifting, pouring into one another, sharing our journeys, being vulnerable about it, letting you know that we're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out, but we do know who is in charge, and we do know who's the ultimate problem solver, the ultimate way maker, and that's
Right.
God Himself. And that's why it's so important to have that relationship. We're not telling you something that we heard, we're telling you something that we know firsthand. And we've
Yeah.
only shared with you a snippet of the stories. We could go on for hours sharing with you more and more, because it gets to a point where it becomes you lose count about just how
Right.
good God is and how He moves in situations that seem impossible, because
Right.
he's God for a reason, and He does it in His own unique and perfect way.
Right.
Those storms don't have to be looked at as ending of times and ending of stories. They look at them as opportunities
Right.
to grow, opportunities to develop, opportunities to be blessed and to be a blessing. So with that said, remember, here at Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep persevering, keep leaning into God and allowing Him to be the head of your life in everything that you do, in all your relationships. And I promise you, it'll be the best decision that you ever make. He will not lead you wrong. He will not lead you astray. He is undefeated and will always be. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. Have a good evening, and I'll see you next time.